Attorney General.
Madam Speaker, I give notice that on the next meeting day I shall present a bill entitled Attorney General Legislation Amendment Bill 2025 Serial 19.
Leader of Government Business.
Madam Speaker, I give notice that on the next meeting day I shall present a bill entitled Local Government Legislation Amendment Bill 2025 Serial 20.
Minister for Education.
Madam Speaker, I give notice that on the next meeting day I shall present a bill entitled Portable Long Service Leave Community Services Sector Repeal Bill 2025 Serial 18.
If there are no more notices, are there any petitions? Are there any questions? Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister and the Minister for Police. On the 27th of February 2025, you were briefed by ICAC on its Operation Apollo report, which found incompetent and negligent conduct by a senior public servant. On multiple occasions, Chief Minister, you had advice from ICAC and the Solicitor General saying that you couldn't release anything from the report, including a week later when you stated that you'd been advised by ICAC you could not take any steps that could identify the individual, any detail beyond a public statement intended to be issued the next day. We now know, Chief Minister, that the ICAC delegate Patricia Kelly SC actually provided the following advice in Clause 48 of the Operation Apollo report, which you received on the 27th of February. I quote, "I consider it appropriate in this particular instance to leave the discretion of the Police Minister as to whether she considers this report ought to be tabled in the Legislative Assembly of the Northern Territory." Chief Minister, why have you spent the past 3 weeks deliberately misleading Territorians about your ability to release the report?
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And boy, they must be more confused over on the other side of the House than I originally thought, Madam Speaker. You are correct, Opposition Leader. Today I made a very important statement in the Parliament off the back of advice I received from the ICAC inspector yesterday. I tabled his advice, which was in the form of a letter. He also prepared a report for me, which I also tabled, and tabled the Operation Apollo report with those 3 paragraphs redacted as per the conditions that the ICAC inspector asked me to comply with. And you will see, and I actually drew the Assembly's attention to paragraph 48 of the Operation Apollo report, which very clearly showed that Patricia Kelly, the delegate of the ICAC, says and you've just read it out, that it is a matter for whether or not I table it in Parliament. Now, I sought that appropriate advice. It's very clearly stated right throughout the ICAC inspector's report that he's provided, which, Opposition Leader, I assume you've read. It very clearly says in the letter, and today is the very first day of Parliament, last time I checked, since the Operation Apollo statement was made, Madam Speaker. And so while those opposite want to, play politics with this issue, my focus has been on methodically stepping through the right thing to do on behalf of Territorians. And I absolutely have to say, and I've said it 1,000 times, I'll say it again, my greatest concern in all of this is what it is doing to our frontline. Because community safety is without a doubt the single biggest issue that Territorians care deeply about. And this has been a very destabilising time. There's been much uncertainty and destabilisation around this. I've responded quickly in terms of making sure we've got the independent inquiry with Justice Blow, and that work will run its course. We've now had the opportunity on the first day of Parliament, just after 10 a.m, Madam Speaker, I made everything available into the Parliament as transparency would dictate. And it's been a very frustrating process for everyone. Undoubtedly, Opposition Leader, you've been frustrated, I've been frustrated, the community has been frustrated. But this is what we have inherited from you. This is what we have inherited from the Labor government. Everything in this report happened under a Labor government. The way in which the ICAC Act operates happened under a Labor government. So, we have worked through this issue. And ultimately, my focus is on making sure that we create certainty and confidence for our frontline so that they can continue to be out there pulling on that blue uniform, leaving their families to protect ours, because that's our greatest priority, the priority of Territorians, and the police have our full support.
Member for Fanny Bay.
Thank you,
Madam Speaker. My question is also to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, this morning it was great to join you and members of the business community to launch our government's new economic strategy. We heard from the Minerals Council about other industry bodies at this event about how critical it is to rebuild our economy. As the Assistant Minister for People, Sport and Culture, I am pleased to see how growing our economy and our population is a key priority for this strategy. Chief Minister, can you please outline further priorities of the new economic strategy and explain why it's so important to each and every single Territorian?
Chief Minister.
Thank you so much, Member for Fanny Bay, and I know that you work tirelessly in your electorate. You have some fantastic businesses, Territorians eager to see the Territory grow moving forwards. And what we've inherited under Labor is an economy going backwards, population going backwards. People had no hope or aspiration for the future. And I know, and we've talked about this before, the number of people we'd speak to who are packing up and leaving. Absolutely heartbreaking. And so we're really proud, just 6 or 7 months into our new government, to have made so much reform already. But this morning was really fantastic to be with the team announcing our Rebuilding the Territory Economic Strategy 2025-2028. And this, I said at the start of this year, Member for Fanny Bay, this year would be a year of action, delivering certainty and security for Territorians. And that's exactly what we are doing. And we're not just talking about it like Labor would, all their major projects they never delivered and all their budget blowouts and, all of the talk. We are delivering the action on the ground because do you know what? Action speaks louder than words, and that's why this year is a year of action. And so we're really focused on having clear targets. We have to reset the entire economic narrative for the Territory in the wake of the devastation Labor's left behind. We literally have projects that are being built right now that have no money attached to them to finish the job, Madam Speaker. No operational funding going forward, Madam Speaker. And certainly we haven't seen any major projects, and it's an absolute devastating disaster because we all know the Territory has opportunity, but we need it to reality. We need it to be reality for our people so that all Territorians benefit. So the key aims of our strategy are around outpacing the nation. We know the Territory can consistently outpace the nation and grow faster than anywhere else, Madam Speaker, and that is our key aim. We're going to play to our natural strengths, get back to basics on what the Territory is really fundamentally good at, what our competitive advantages are. And we're going to benefit all Territorians because when our economy is strong, the Territory is strong. It increases our opportunity to support police, to build more prisons, to support the justice system, all of which were left broken and dismantled by a Labor government that had completely lost its way. And so this new approach is required. It's tangible and aspirational, which is important, but it has to be based in reality. And that's why we're very, very excited about our Rebuilding the Territory Strategy 2025-2028. We look forward to achieving these targets, and so much reform has already happened, but I know you're as keen as I am, Member for Fanny Bay, to get the job done.
Member for Gwaja.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, for over the past 3 weeks, you have claimed that ICAC Act has bound you to secrecy. That is not true. You told Territorians the Solicitor General had given you advice that you couldn't speak about Operation Apollo findings. That is not true. But now, Madam Speaker, the ICAC inspector has made it clear nothing in the ICAC Act has ever prevented you, Chief Minister, from speaking. Chief Minister, will you table the Solicitor General's advice and will you apologise to Territorians for misleading them over the last 3 weeks, and will you apologise for causing chaos in the Northern Territory Police Force?
Chief Minister.
The hypocrisy is running hot today, Madam Speaker. I tell you what, someone get out a thermometer. I think they're getting a little hot over there. Honestly, I don't even know where to start to answer that ridiculous question. You show me, Member for Gwaja, where it says that. I mean, how ridiculous. I literally have gotten the advice from the ICAC inspector yesterday, who very clearly steps out, and I know you know, it's quite a few pages, and maybe you haven't had time over the lunch break to read all 6 pages, Member for Gwoja. And I know you used to be the Attorney General and you weren't very good at that, so it's
Take
probably
your
why
seat,
you
please,
haven't
Chief
grasped
Minister. What's your point of order, Member for Gwoja?
Standing Order 20. Again, I'm not misleading. Standing Order, Madam Speaker, relevance.
point of order?
110, relevance. It's in black and white. The ICAC inspectors put it out. You had nothing preventing you from
Okay.
speaking. You're lying.
There's plenty of time for the Chief Minister to respond to your question. Chief Minister, you have the call.
Madam Speaker, it really is quite pathetic to see the opposition trying their best to play trickery with this. I have made the Operation Apollo report public as per the explicit instructions of the ICAC investigator, as per his report, which I've also tabled, in accordance with his letter, which I'm also tabled. It very, very clearly talks about tabling it in Parliament. That is what I've done. The Operation Apollo report talks about tabling it in Parliament, which is what I've done. It required 3 paragraphs to be redacted because it is compelled evidence. We have done that, Madam Speaker. I just think it's very, very interesting coming from a government that ran and hid at every opportunity. And, you know, you can stand here and call me whatever names you like, Member for Gwoja. That's a matter for you, and the community will judge you for your name-calling and low-grade political attacks. Because that is all he's got, Member for Barclay. That is all he's got. At the end of the day, I have made decisions and I stand by those decisions. Now, you can judge me, the community can judge me, whether they thought 8 days or 3 days or whatever metric you're using was too slow. But I will never apologise for making the right decisions on behalf of Territorians, for following the right processes. And I think it's very interesting that if you think there's no requirement to be bound by ICAC, why you were never so forthcoming with information when you were a government minister, Member for Gwoja. So I just think it's a little bit cute. I just think it's a little bit cute. We have been fully transparent and honest in this process. People want to throw mud. That's politics. I get it, Madam Speaker. No dramas with that. At the end of the day, I have executed my responsibility, and we are very, very proud to be delivering a government that backs in our police, that understands that there are right ways to do things and wrong ways to do things. And we will not be schooled by a Labor government who failed so fundamentally badly. We will not be taking advice from you.
Member for Fong Lim. Member for Fong Lim, you have the call.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Treasurer. Treasurer, the Northern Territory economy struggled under 8 years of Labor governance. Labor mismanaged the economy so badly that the Territory was ranked as the worst performing economy in the nation for 6 consecutive years. With the economy in such bad shape, it's no surprise that Labor's last year in government saw business confidence in the Territory decline. Now, at the election, the CLP promised loud and clear that we would rebuild the economy, and this government is working hard to make good on this promise. Treasurer, can you enlighten the House as to what actions the CLP is taking to improve our economic standing, and what do current reports show about the state of the Territory economy?
Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Fong Lim for his question. And member for Fong Lim, business confidence didn't just decline under Labor, it fell off a cliff. Madam Speaker, I can tell you that just after 6 months, though, the CLP's responsible common sense economic leadership, the Territory's economy has actually a lot to show. Words that never could be used to describe Labor's management of the economy. And let's look at some of those key indicators the member for Fong Lim mentioned. The Territory has topped several economic indicators for the last quarter of 2024, and of course that's from October to December. And for example, Madam Speaker, the Territory's state final demand, a measure of the demand for goods and services in the NT, has increased by 1.6% to $8.5 billion last quarter. Even more astounding, Madam Speaker, the NT outperformed all other states. South Australia declined by 0.3%, Western Australia only grew by 1.1%, and the national domestic final demand only rose by 0.5%. And that's just in the first 3 months of the CLP government's tenure. Private investment, Madam Speaker, surged 6.1%, with business investment up 5.7%. This surge is because investors know that a CLP government backs them and is committed to rebuilding our economy. This investment will continue to grow under the CLP thanks to our introduction of the Territory Coordinator, who is cutting through red tape and will be driving projects forward. We're also seeing big growth in dwelling investment and building approval numbers for the Territory. In the last quarter, dwelling investment increased by 6.8%. Residential building approvals went up by 74.2% compared to the start of last year under Labor. Mind you, Madam Speaker, Labor's numbers were so low that any increase has a huge effect. Backing our builders is something that Labor failed to do after 8 long years in power, overseeing the worst 8 years for home building since records began. This 180-degree turnaround in residential construction industry is thanks to the CLP's first home owner grants, which are literally rebuilding the Territory brick by brick. Madam Speaker, we're only halfway through the program and 100 applicants have already been approved to build new homes. That's over 100 homes Labor failed to add to housing supply. Homes that are stimulating the construction industry and creating job opportunities for Territorians. Madam Speaker, new houses mean new white goods, new TVs, new furniture and, dare I say it, a new shed for the boats. Consumption and household spending are up as Territorians finally have breathing room under falling inflation and strong wage growth. Madam Speaker, the facts speak for themselves. State final demand is up. Private investment is up. Residential construction industry is recovering and Territorians can feel the economy improving as they spend more and support local businesses. It's clear, Madam Speaker, the CLP is delivering for Territorians.
Member for Daly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister and Minister for Police. 9 days after ICAC's Operational Apollo report found the Police Commissioner had acted improperly in a senior hiring process, you placed him on leave and announced Mr Martin Dole as Acting Police Commissioner. On radio on Monday the 10th of March, you said you had only been advised that the day the Acting Commissioner Dole had also been on the same hiring panel. Chief Minister, is this true or were we actually told about Acting Commissioner Dole's involvement days earlier? And if so, why did you mislead Territorians about this?
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much. They're obviously running out of questions on the other side, Madam Speaker. I've answered this question so many times, and in fact, I actually went through it this morning at 10 o'clock in my statement, and so I went through it very, very clearly when Mr Finn was on radio on Monday. That's the first I heard of it. It's not in the report which I just tabled, so that's a matter for you. He'd never had that discussion with me previously. That is my answer. I don't know how else to say it. I heard it on Monday. That's when I heard it.
Member for Goyder.
Madam Speaker, my question is for the Minister for Land, Planning and Environment. Minister, affordable land and housing has been hard to come by in recent years. We've seen the cost of living skyrocket. Many Territorians and Australians more broadly have been doing it tough, with their plans and dreams put on hold. Minister, can you please update the House on the Holtz land release development, including what this government is doing to support Territorians to enter the housing market and how this development will drive economic development and support population growth?
Minister for
Lands,
Planning and Environment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Goyder for the question. Madam Speaker, this is a great opportunity to update the House and the community on the recent significant milestone reached as part of the Holtz land release. Now known as the Parks Estate, lots within Stage 1 of Holtz are on the market and offer a range of competitive options for those people looking to build their home in the top end. When we came into government, Madam Speaker, we promised to rebuild the economy after 8 years of neglect and no action under the former Labor government. Ensuring that more affordable land is available for housing is vital to keeping Territorians here and attracting new families and essential workers to the Territory. There's been significant work at the site to ensure the enabling infrastructure, my new favourite word, Madam Speaker, you hear about this all the time. Without the poles and wires in the ground and the plumbing, you can't build a house. We need to ensure that enabling infrastructure is completed and construction can commence as soon as possible. As well as the area planning process to guide the future development, where up to 11,000 homes may eventually be constructed. Not only will the enabling works support new homes, but also future expansion of the Palmerston Regional Hospital and the development of Greater Holtz. And it was wonderful, Madam Speaker, to get down there with my big hat. You need a big hat for a big announcement like this. I had the Treasurer, Bill Yan, with me, Madam Speaker, and we spoke to people on site. We spoke to the wonderful construction people from HB Constructions. We spoke to the civil workers from AKJ. Ground was being broken as we were down there, Madam Speaker. We saw the trucks, we saw the triples, we saw the side tippers all down there. This is something that is happening. Part A, enabling works, will be finished before the end of this year, meaning builders could be on site constructing homes later this year. I know firsthand, Madam Speaker, how hard it can be to take the next step to get into the housing market, how daunting it is, and I'm sure most of you in this room know too. That's why our government is also supporting Territorians with $50,000, one of the best home building grants in the country, Madam Speaker, to get in their own first home. Having a place to call home is not a luxury, it is a fundamental need of everyone here in the Northern Territory. Affordable housing opportunities have been virtually non-existent for locals. 8 long years Territorians have had to endure economic decline and diminishing population under the former Labor government. Stage 1 lots provide land from $189,000, which is pretty good, Madam Speaker. 10 years ago, I got my block for $175,000. I thought that was good. The first stage, Madam Speaker, the first stage of lots are almost sold out. So if you want to get a block, get in quick.
Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister and Minister for Police. For the past 3 weeks, while you've been dodging questions about ICAC's Operation Apollo report, crime has surged across the Northern Territory. There have been aggregated robberies in Alice Springs, Karama and Darwin. Police officers and members of the public have been assaulted. Vehicles have been stolen in Katherine, Palmerston, Alice Springs, Tennant Creek and Winnellie in Darwin. 2 prisoners have escaped. A horrific sexual assault occurred in Allawa and yet another Territorian has lost their life to domestic violence. Chief Minister, before the election you promised Territorians you would fix crime and be transparent. Chief Minister, you are failing on both accounts. What do you have to say to Territorians who feel let down by your leadership and your broken promises?
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And if the one thing that the opposition leader is right about, it is that crime is unacceptable and Territorians care very, very, very much about making sure we're reducing crime. And that is why we're here, Madam Speaker. It's why one of the very first thing we did in coming to government is prepare our reducing crime package for those October sittings. And ever since then, we have continued to draft laws stronger, better, giving our frontline more support. But as the opposition leader just highlighted, the magnitude of crime Territorians are suffering under is unbelievable. And it's actually because for 8 years, the opposition leader, as a government minister, would walk into this parliament when they sat on this side and water down the laws time and time again. And I was sitting in her seat, Madam Speaker, and I was saying, do not do this. This is a major issue. On top of that, you had the member for Guoja as Corrections Minister failing to invest in corrections infrastructure. And so the justice system of the Northern Territory, including lack of investment in courts, is an absolute mess, Madam Speaker. But we have given our police more powers and we will continue to. One body of work I'm really excited about, and so is the Frontline, is our rewriting of the Youth Justice Act. And that has come to me directly from police on the ground, interfacing with it every single day. We've also got changes to the Traffic Act happening because I went out with traffic coppers and I was talking to them about it and we got some great feedback and ideas. So that work is happening. Obviously, this sittings of Parliament, we've got some other amendments around powers of entry for police. So absolutely, we have to go full throttle on this. It is an incredibly big issue across the Territory. But we've just seen an accelerated constable squad and ACPO's transitioning to constables swear their oath last week. We also had constables graduate from the college. I think we sent 11 to Katherine and 10 to Alice Springs, or the other way around, which is fantastic. And that was our promise over Christmas, obviously, to the people of Alice Springs when those Adelaide-based police went back. We said, you've got your own Territory coppers coming, and they're there. So we will continue to support recruitment. There is a strong recruitment program through the college, and we're getting heaps of people apply, and lots of them are locals, which means Territorians are putting up their hand and answering the call to serve, which is unbelievable. And I thank them so much for it. So you're right, Opposition Leader. There is so much more work to do, and we've never backed down and shied away from that. But you need to take a good hard look in the mirror and reflect on the fact that it is systematic years of failure that's delivered this crime to the people of the Northern Territory.
Member for Drysdale.
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure. Minister, there has been significant discussion over recent months around the Darwin Port. We know the port is critical to the economic development of the Territory. There has also been commentary about the efficiency of the port and the difficulties some drivers and carriers have had in their access to the port and the booking of loading slots and time it takes to have their trucks loaded. Can the Minister tell the Assembly about the government's position on the Port of Darwin?
Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Drysdale for the question. And I know that he certainly understands the critical economic and strategic importance of the port. And Madam Speaker, just 2 weeks ago I wrote to all port stakeholders to reassert this government's commitment to an efficient and an effective port. The Darwin Port is fundamental to the Northern Territory's economy, and it's supporting key industries that drive jobs and investment right across the Territory and helps with our economic growth. It is the main trade gateway for our mining, agriculture, energy, construction and defence sectors, each of which relies on efficient port operations to remain competitive and to deliver economic benefits to the Territory. And Madam Speaker, let me illustrate this with a few statistics. Live animal exports have increased from around 81,000 head in 2023 to over 93,000 in 2024. And of course this is great news for our ag sector as it reflects the growing international demand for Territory livestock, and we will continue to work to grow that sector. It strengthens our local cattle industry, creates jobs across supply chains and reinforces the NT's reputation as a top quality beef exporter. But to ensure our exporters can continue meeting this demand, we need smooth port operations. Delays in loading mean added costs for producers and transporters, reducing our competitiveness in global markets, and this is something that we must improve. We recognise the challenges in port efficiency at both ends of the operation, where goods arrive and where they depart. Truck drivers are being frustrated by long wait times and delays in handling cargo, which impacts both importers and exporters. Freight forwarders and import-export agents face ongoing disruptions that complicate logistics, increase costs and undermine supply chain efficiency. And this was particularly acute over the 2024 Christmas period. Madam Speaker, we are using every available lever to address these issues, working with industry to improve scheduling, streamline logistics and ensure that our stevedores have the resources they need to move cargo efficiently. And I spoke with all of those port operators prior to Christmas to try and resolve the issues around freight forwarding out of the Darwin port to make sure that all needed cargo got off the port and got into our shops, and people actually may have got their Christmas presents that they may have ordered from overseas. But, Madam Speaker, to maximise its potential, we must ensure it operates in the best interests of Territorians. And that means strategic oversight, targeted investment, and a commitment to efficiency and capacity expansion. A port that works well strengthens our industries, supports jobs and attracts investment to the Territory. We must make sure that it remains a driver of Territory growth for decades to come. And that's why I wrote to all the operators and I wrote to the port operators to tell them that we have their backs.
Member for Gwadja.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Northern Territory's Attorney-General. Attorney-General, will you release the legal advice from the Solicitor-General about Operation Apollo report that the Chief Minister has spent the last 3 weeks hiding behind?
Attorney-General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thanks for the question, Member for Gwadja. As the former Attorney-General, I think you know exactly how this whole process works. And the Chief Minister has been absolutely clear from the very start of all of this coming to light that she is taking a methodical, well-considered approach. She's making sure she has all the advice that she can get to ensure that she's acting in the best interest of Territorians. And I, for one, completely, utterly support our Chief Minister on exactly how she has taken Territorians through this process. We are a strong, united team, and we 100% back the Chief Minister. We back the advice that she seeks to get, and as Attorney-General, I know that she will always act in the best interest of Territorians. She has done that from the very start when she first set foot in this chamber, and I have seen her flawless in her delivery of ensuring that she works for the Territory. And while I'm at it, Madam Speaker, it is so interesting that the Labor opposition are so critical of this issue when they have no credibility in this space. You have been through 8 years of integrity crises. The Chief Minister is doing everything that she needs to do with the right advice for the interests of Territorians, and you sit here and absolutely carry on. How about you look yourselves in the mirror and actually talk about the things that Territorians want to know about?
Point of order.
Take your seat. Attorney-General. Member for Gwadja, what is your point of order?
Standing order, Madam Speaker, 110, relevance. I asked the Attorney-General if she would release the advice, not a fanfare girl tale of the Chief Minister.
Okay, that's probably enough. You've made your point. Attorney-General, please.
Question.
So you've completed your answer?
I've completed my question and answer.
Oh, my apologies. I misunderstood that. Member for Nightcliff. Oh, sorry.
My question is to the Minister for Education. Minister, last week you announced in a media release that your government was scrapping the portable long service leave for those in the community services sector, such as disability and aged care workers and early education daycare workers. I am able to be here working, as many others are in this chamber, due to the caring, hard-working childcare workers looking after my children. Portable long service leave for these workers is crucial, as these industries are often very insecure and a highly casualised workforce. These type of schemes exist in many other industries and indeed other jurisdictions without a problem. The invaluable work that people in these sectors do is essential to the functioning of the NT, and you have made it even harder for us to compete interstate to recruit staff in these sectors. The excuse you made in your press release that it would make childcare more expensive is incorrect and a distraction. Minister, apart from the single childcare business owner that you quoted in your press release, did you consult with any unions or actual workers on this? And what do you have to say to the childcare, aged care and disability workers in my electorate who see this as a slap in the face?
Minister for Education.
Thank you, and I thank the member for Nightcliff for the question. And yes, last week I was at a media release, did do a media release with the member for Wanguri, and we were out at the childcare centre. And what I would just like to let the member for Nightcliff know, that this was a scheme, one of Labor's many schemes that came in prior to the election, moments before we went to an election last year. And as we've seen and heard from the Treasurer, this was one of many schemes that were uncosted, Madam Speaker. So, you know, the opposition and crossbenchers can stand up and talk about this portable long service leave, but what this would have done, and yes, there was consultation with the industry, but what this would have done is potentially put, you know, more cost to families that are putting their children in childcare, and that cost would have been passed on to those families. We already have you know, increased cost of living, and families are doing it hard right across the Territory. And, Madam Speaker, I'd like to pick up on the constant interjection from the opposition leader, who should know better than to listen to the answer to a question, whether it's her question or not. By continuing interjections, you're just wasting the member for Nightcliff's time.
Okay, opposition leader, hush, please. Continue,
so,
Minister.
We are actually taking immediate action to ensure this poorly planned and ill-thought-out scheme is scrapped for good, Madam Speaker. And if Labor had anything to do with this and this scheme going through, it would have enabled employees in the community service sector, including childcare, aged care, disability services, to accumulate the long service leave benefits based on their total years of service in this sector without the requirement to maintain continuous employment with a single employer. So the scheme was funded by a new wage levy that would have been passed on to employers, as I've said, who would in turn increase prices. So as I said, the childcare centres have said that would have cost them potentially $50,000 extra a year, and that would have been passed
Take your
on
seat,
to
please,
families.
Minister. Member for Nightcliff, what's your point of order?
110 relevance, I asked, apart from, I know you said you consulted with the industry, I asked, apart from the childcare business owners, did you consult with unions or actual workers? And secondly, what do you have to say to the childcare, aged care and disability workers in my electorate who see this as a slap in the face and complete dismissal of the importance of their
Minister,
work?
you have the call.
Thank you. And I pick up on that. I don't actually think, Madam Speaker, it is a slap in the face because, as I said, this was a poorly ill-thought-out scheme by the previous Labor government. The setup costs alone, Madam Speaker, were estimated to be between $4 million and $12 million,
Silence.
with more required annually to operate the scheme. So, you know, the member for Fanny Bay, the member for Nightcliff and the opposition leader can stand there and criticise us for repealing this, but in actual fact, this cost would have been, Territorians would have been paying more.
Member for Blaine. Silence. Member for Blaine. Member for Blaine.
Thank you, Madam
You've got the
Speaker.
call.
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Deputy Chief Minister and Minister for Corrections. Minister, like many here, I have concerns about the use of police watch houses being used for extended periods to house prisoners who should be in correctional centres. It has been clear that this government inherited a real problem with the prisons being full, resulting from a lack of action by the former government who had no plans to alleviate the growth in prisoner numbers. I know as the Corrections Minister this has been a concern for you and that you've been working with the Corrections Commissioner to build additional prison capacity. Can you please update the House and my constituents on the actions to clear the police prisons and transfer prisoners to dedicated correctional centres?
Minister for Corrections.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, the member for Blaine, for this important question. Madam Speaker, I know, and we all know, that the member for Blaine is a strong advocate for Palmerston and his community, passionately supporting corrections officers and pushing to clear the prisoners from the police watch houses to allow the police to do their job, Madam Speaker, which is to keep us safe, keep Territorians safe, something the Labor government failed to do over the last 8 years. And that's why, Madam Speaker, we're on this side of the chamber and they are on that side of the chamber because they failed Territorians. Madam Speaker, for
Silence,
8 years,
please.
the former Labor government ignored the problem. Despite warnings and obvious pressures on the correction systems, they did nothing. Madam Speaker, since 2023, corrections have had to rely on police watch houses to manage rising prisoner numbers in a situation, Madam Speaker, that wasn't ideal and a situation that I have fought hard to change. Madam Speaker, I can inform the House that corrections will no longer staff or use operational police watch houses in Palmerston and Alice Springs. Madam Speaker, by Monday the 10th of March 2025, all prisoners were moved from Palmerston Watch House to Holtz and Berrimah, with final transfers in Alice Springs Correctional Centre completed by March the 16th. This means, Madam Speaker, that the watch houses are available to be able to protect Territorians, to allow police to do their job, to move freely in, go and arrest people who are doing the wrong thing. And, Madam Speaker, I've said this many times, if you do the wrong thing in the Northern Territory, we are going to find a bed for you. Our mandate is to keep our mandate is to keep the community safe, and that's what we intend to do. Madam Speaker, the NT News on the 26th of March 23 reported NT Corrections break record prison population, police houses used for overflow. So that's when this problem first started. And I can remember in the last session here last year, the former police minister saying, we're going to get rid of them, we're going to get the correction staff out of watch houses by mid-last year. And, Madam Speaker, guess what? Failed. They failed dismally, and they failed to support the police, and they, more importantly, in my view, as the Corrections Minister, they failed to support corrections officers. Corrections officers and police do a wonderful job because they need to work hand in hand, Madam Speaker, and this is one thing that the former government forgot to do. They forgot to fund the courts and the correction system. They funded the police and they funded criminals, but they certainly didn't fund the corrections or the courts. And we are here to fix the mess, and we have done that. And we've done it, and we're very proud, Madam Speaker. We have brought a new facility up and running in Berrimah. There's about 320 new prisoners in there because we are determined to keep the community safe.
Member for Mulca.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, at the end of last year, the NT Independent reported on 5 senior police officers who gave false sworn statements to the Kumanjayi Walker coronial inquest about racist awards handed out by the TRG. What actions has the government taken to address the police officers' criminal actions of the providing false sworn statements to the court? Thank you.
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Member for Mulca, for your question. So, going back to last year, I'm not exactly sure of the timeline, but I believe around that period you mentioned in November was when the ICAC report was tabled. Is that, yep, correct, thank you. So in that, I don't have the information in front of me, Madam Speaker, but in that I believe that there was no action coming out of that ICAC report. I'm not aware if police are doing an additional process on top of the ICAC process, but obviously that was something that went to the ICAC, was investigated and then was made public. From my perspective, obviously it's been a very concerning chapter, but we are very, very focused on rebuilding a strong police force moving forward, and that's something we've been really, really clear about. Certainly a lot of measures have been taken, including, of course, we've got Leanne Little now as an Executive Director in Police, and her job is really looking at all of these issues and areas. I know we're working really hard at the moment, and it's a very exciting project because I think it will make a big difference. But in our 000 call centres, having language speakers, and I think that's a really, really important way to deliver much better outcomes to people right across the Northern Territory and overcome some of those language barriers. Certainly when I went and visited the GESC, it must have been a couple of months ago now, I got to work with one of the language speakers on taking a call. So I've seen it in action and it's working well. Member for Mulca, short of me having a copy of the ICAC's report in front of me, which I don't, certainly the ICAC's had the opportunity to examine that matter.
Member for Casuarina.
Sorry, that was in...
Did you complete your answer?
Yeah.
Yes, I think the moment's passed. Member for Johnston. Member for Casuarina.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Trade, Business and Asian Relations, responsible for domestic and international air services. Minister, it is clear that the new CLP government has made air connectivity a priority, and we have already seen some promising developments in this area, including the introduction of the AirAsia flight to Denpasar and the direct Air North services from Alice Springs to Cairns. Could you please provide the House with an update on how these increased air links will benefit Territorians, and are there any other initiatives or announcements that we can expect in the near future?
Minister for Trade, Business and Asian Relations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Casuarina for his question. I know how hard you're working for your electorate as we work to improve the economic outlook for all Territorians. We know that as one of Australia's most remote and expansive regions, the NT faces unique challenges in connecting with the rest of the country and the world, Madam Speaker. Air connectivity is the lifeblood of the Northern Territory, helping it remain competitive, accessible and sustainable for Territorians and visitors alike. Whether it's keeping families connected, expanding business opportunities, attracting tourists or maintaining vital services, consistent air services are crucial for the Territory's prosperity and future growth. Air connectivity not only facilitates trade, it ensures the Territory remains integrated into national and international networks for security, diplomacy and cooperation, a critically important consideration given the role the Northern Territory plays in Australia's broader landscape of trade and defence. Madam Speaker, it's been an incredibly exciting start to 2025 in increasing the Territory's connectivity domestically and internationally. In a few short weeks, we've had a quintuplet of airline travel announcements. Jetstar's seasonal Darwin Gold Coast route operating June to October, Air North's Alice Springs Cairns route operating 3 times per week commencing 14 April, the Qantas Group's addition of 95,000 domestic seats in the Darwin-Adelaide, Darwin-Brisbane, Darwin-Sydney routes, as well as a seasonal Darwin-Canberra route 3 times per week. And Madam Speaker, after an 8-year absence, AirAsia's returned to the Territory with their announcement of a 3 times a week Darwin-Bali route, with the first flight to depart this coming Saturday was especially welcomed, demonstrating just how important and critical our CLP's government's decision to restore the portfolio of Asian relations was after it was abandoned by the Gunner government almost a decade ago. And yesterday, AirAsia doubled down on their investment into the Territory with their announcement of a 4 times a week route, Darwin to Kuala Lumpur, commencing 27 June. This provision of a low-cost carrier will see seamless travel to some most in-demand destinations across Asia, including Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines and India. This will not only improve air accessibility and affordability for the Territory, but will make it much easier to invest, do business and visit. It supports tourism growth, makes it easier for cost-conscious business travels, especially self-funded conference attendees. Our work in this space has just begun and we will continue to fight for the Territory and greater connectivity across the board.
Member for Karama.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Housing, Local Government and Community Services. Minister, I know the management of public housing tenancies across the Northern Territory is a challenging and complex issue. As the representative for the good people of Karama and Malak, I can say it is the single biggest issue for many of my constituents. You have previously spoken around the fact that under Labor, we've seen an erosion in accountability and responsibility enabled by a government not interested in protecting the broader interests of tax-paying Territorians. Minister, can you update the House on the work you have done with your department to identify and address systemic failings of the Labor government in holding non-compliant tenants to account? Thank you.
Minister for Housing.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Karama for that important question. I know how hard the member for Karama and all of the MLAs here have been working right throughout their electorates to address antisocial behaviour, poor behaviour, drinking in public places. It's been an ongoing issue in public housing. The levels of violence, criminal behaviour people have been forced to endure over an 8-year period under Labor is nothing short of horrendous. The sad truth is that under Labor, who turned a blind eye to accountability and personal responsibility for tenants in public housing. I've spoken previously in this House about the need to shift the pendulum back to a sensible balance between the rights of the individual against responsibility. When I speak about responsibility, I'm referring to the responsibility that comes with a public housing tenancy to act and abide in a manner that meets community standards and expectations. I'm sure, and I'm not alone in my thinking, that one of the expectations of the broader community would also include paying rent for a house that's been provided by the government. You can imagine, Member for Karama, how appalled I am, and I'm sure that the majority of Territorians would like to hear about the recent history and current state of rental arrears across the Northern Territory in the public housing portfolio. So if we go back to 7th of December 2021, the Labor government at the time considered the submission under the Remote Public Housing Rental Framework and approved a policy to waive the entire remote rent debt balance of $69.71 million. That was back in December 2021. The waiver was based on the fact that it was considered irrecoverable by Labor. In just the 2.5 years since that write-off, the department is now carrying an accumulated rental arrears debt of over $39 million. Over $39 million. Again, this is after the $69 million was written off by Labor in 2021. There are now 1,422 tenancies with debt above the $10,000 mark. That's right, 1,422 tenancies have a debt of over $10,000. The highest is $40,000, followed by a couple at $36,000, another at $33,000 and another at $39,000. Madam Speaker, I had to stop asking after that. The rental debt presented to me was overwhelming. So whilst it is clear the Labor Party approach with this issue was to shrug their shoulders and hide responsibility from taxpayer and Territorians, this is not the CLP way, and we're taking steps to fix it.
Member for Arafura.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister and Minister of Police. While you have spent the last 3 weeks trying to hide Operation Apollo reports from Territorians, your government has still been hiding the truth on crime statistics. The most recent crime statistics on the anti-police website are from December 2024 and have not been updated since the 3rd of February. This is despite you telling Parliament that they would be updated on every third Friday of each month at 10:30. This is also stated on the anti-police website. Minister, why is your government hiding crime statistics from Territorians?
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Member for Arafura. I can assure you there's no hiding. This is actually a responsibility for the Attorney-General. The police stats go into a system and the scheme is supported and facilitated by Attorney-Generals, so I'll pass over to the AG.
Attorney-General.
Thank you, Member for Arafura. Yeah, I can go through a couple of those statistics. The fact that the Attorney-General's office that actually looks at the crime statistics, the police put it up. You know full well that under your government you implemented SERPRO, which caused a whole heap of problems with the way in which data was collected, and it's manually having to be looked at to be able to put up into those systems. So while that work is underway and we continue to put as much crime statistics up on the site as possible, I can take you through a couple of the statistics for your constituents to understand and for Territorians. Basically, there were 493 fewer crime statistic offences, which is offences against the person and against the property, in January 2025 than there was in January 2024. Together, the December 2024 and January 2025 offences were 495 fewer than in December 2023 and January 2024. Property offences were 25% less than in January 2025 than in January 2024, and the December to January offences this year were 17% fewer than last year. The break-in offences was 50% fewer in January 2025 than in January 2024, and the December to January offences this year were 39% fewer than last year. This means that the crime stats since December 2023 really can't be compared to the January or December 2024 figures because of the transition from Promise through to SERPRO, which you know all about because it was your government that implemented SERPRO. And there's a whole heap of work happening to be able to have these statistics uploaded in a very timely manner as per these changes to the websites, and we'll continue to do that work. What I can tell you is the statistics are not the only measure that Territorians look at when they are thinking about how crime is impacting their communities. And when I've been out and about, speaking to my community, being down in Alice Springs, in Katherine, they are certainly feeling like there's a shift in the crime statistics. They are feeling like there's hope and optimism now because the work the police are doing, the work that corrections are doing, the work that courts are doing. So that is something that's a focus for us. We will continue to do that work.
Time's expired, Minister. Member for Wanguri. Oh, supplementary. Supplementary, member for Arafura.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, if you have the figures, why are you not publicly publishing them?
Attorney General. Are you going to answer the question? Yes.
Oh, sorry, Madam Speaker. The crime statistics are published on the third Friday of every month. So.
Okay.
So you will
we
see
won't
those.
have commentary across the chamber.
So
Do
you will
have
see
an
those
answer?
statistics published on the third Friday of every month.
Member for Wanguri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Early Education and the Public Service. Minister, the high cost of living is continually raised with me by the good people of the Wanguri electorate, with recent increases to groceries, insurance and interest rates. Families in my electorate and across the territory are struggling to pay the bills. As the Assistant Minister for Treasury and Finance and as a mother myself, I know that childcare costs make up a huge part of the family budget. Minister, can you please explain to the House how the Labor Party plan to increase childcare fees to Territory parents and what action our CLP government has taken to ensure childcare fees don't increase in the Territory and place families under budget pressures, or ensure childcare centres to continue to provide quality care?
Minister for Early Education. Silence, please.
Thank you, Member for Wanguri, for the important question. And I did touch on this with the Member for Nightcliff previously. But it goes again, Madam Speaker, and shows how out of touch the Labor Party is with what matters to Territorians. The member for Wanguri joined me last week to hear directly from a childcare business in her electorate about how they would have no choice but to hike up their childcare fees if the Labor Party's portable long service leave scheme was implemented in the Territory. So Sarah Lloyd joined me from Territory Childcare Group, and she operates several daycare centres across Darwin, said that the Labor scheme failed to consider the true cost for childcare businesses. She said this additional financial burden would have been passed on to families in the form of increased childcare fees. So the CLP opposed this scheme, Madam Speaker, when in opposition and voted against Labor's bill when it was rushed through Parliament before the election last year. At the time, we spoke with several local childcare businesses who told us Labor had failed to consult with them about the impact of the scheme. And they said the scheme would be an accounting nightmare and could ultimately cost up to $50,000 in increased costs each year. Madam Speaker, this is why the CLP government will be repealing the portable long service leave. And surprise, surprise, Madam Speaker, upon coming into government, we found that in typical Labor fashion, their portable long service scheme was not properly budgeted for, in fact unfunded, and would have relied on a Treasury loan to cover its set-up costs, with no ongoing funding assigned for its operational once active. The set-up costs alone were estimated to be between $4 and $12 million, with millions more required annually to operate the scheme. To not plan or budget for this scheme is a disgrace and would have only added to the Territory's catastrophic debt levels,
Minister,
which we...
Pause. I can hear you, Opposition Leader, louder than what I can hear the Minister. Can you just keep it down? Thank you, Minister.
So to not plan or budget for this scheme is a disgrace and would have only added to the Territory's catastrophic debt levels, which we have inherited. And to make it worse, the Territory Government, as the main funder of these community service roles, would have borne the brunt of this scheme, with the estimated cost to the NT Government $20 million a year. The CLP Government values and supports our hard-working community services sector. This change will not affect employees' existing long service leave entitlements under enterprise agreements. But, Madam Speaker, it is clear this was costly and poorly thought-out scheme that, if implemented, would have cost Territory families hundreds of dollars a year. And thankfully, we have acted to ensure this does not happen.
Member for Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, according to the Operation Beaufort report, ICAC couldn't provide natural justice to those 5 senior officers who gave false statements because the former ICAC Commissioner promised anonymity to people giving evidence. That doesn't mean that the government can't act to deal with the crime of lying to the court. Chief Minister, what disciplinary action has the government taken against these police officers who have openly committed a crime? Thank you.
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much to the member for her question. So I don't have the ICAC report in front of me, which is what I said earlier, and any disciplinary or other matters is not a matter for me as Minister, certainly not as Chief Minister. These are operational matters for police. It's been a significant period of time. I don't have an update on me, Member for Johnson, but certainly I can perhaps get you some more information if you like.
Chief Minister, take your seat. Have you finished your...
Yeah.
The Chief Minister's finished her answer, so I'm sorry, Member for Johnston. Member for Arafura.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister and the Minister for Police. Why have you cut anti-government funding to the security patrols in Maningrida when security guards are still in place in Darwin, Palmerston and Alice Springs? Why is community safety less of a priority for you in Maningrida than other parts of the territory?
Chief Minister.
This is a great question, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Arafura for his question, because he should be sitting down with his community and explaining to them how the Labor government he was a part of has let them down. And so the funding provided by Labor around security services did not match the contracts that were going out the door. And so, again, this is entirely an operational matter for police, how they use resources. I'll always remember it was actually then Chief Minister Natasha Files in Estimates. I was asking questions about crime and she said, oh, this isn't, words to the effect of this isn't my problem, and that it was all being transferred across to police. So this is, again, another Labor legacy. And certainly with an $11 billion debt, it means that Territorians miss out. That's exactly why you can't just spend money like a child in a lolly shop. There is only a finite amount of resources that the Territory has. We can collect money from tax, which we certainly don't want to be taxing Territorians more. We can get revenue from mining royalties, and we've got 2 mines ready to close, none others on the horizon because your government was opposed to economic development. Here we are trying to pass Territory Coordinator and other regulatory reform to get more mines going so that we make more money and we can support more services, and the opposition you belong to, it doesn't want to have a bar of it. So it's a little test of reality that you need money to pay for things, and that ultimately when there is no money, you have to make tough decisions. But what we know is that community safety is the absolute priority. We're strengthening our support of police. We're strengthening the laws. We're giving police better powers. That work has started, but it is absolutely ongoing, Member for Arafura. It is just the beginning. We've already seen some really, really fantastic outcomes from the laws that we've been able to bring in place. And for example...
Please take your seat, Chief Minister. Opposition Leader, what is your point of order?
Order 110 relevance. The question was clearly about Maningrida community and the funding, and why other communities have still got the same funding and Maningrida has been cut.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I have answered the question and I'm continuing to answer the question. So post and boast legislation, which we passed last year, there have been 10 individuals charged up until the 28th of February for wanding, and I know certainly there's been wanding is one of those proactive powers that we've increased under Declan's law.
Chief Minister, take your seat. What's your point of order, Member for Blaine? Sorry. Daly, sorry.
Don't worry, I'm not too offended, a little bit. Thank you, Madam Speaker. 110 relevance, just back to the question. The question was around funding for security guards in Maningrida and why the Chief Minister has cut that funding, and why other areas haven't been cut. Why is she targeting Maningrida specifically?
Member for Daly, she was only on her feet 10 minutes in between the last point of order and this point of order, so...
30 seconds.
30 seconds to go, Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I've answered the question. When you've got $11 billion debt, and at the end of the day, these are police operational decisions. But what I am talking about is the work we've been able to do to support our police and drive down crime. We've had 50 weapons seized, 41 of those knives or edged weapons. 15 people have been arrested. There have been 35 handheld scan authorities issued and 3,162 people scanned by Northern Territory Police thanks to Declan's Law.
Member for Fanny Bay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for People, Sport and Culture. Minister, many of my constituents are regular users of the Marara Sports Precinct, and I'm aware that there's significant work that has been undertaken on the Marara Master Plan over the past few months. Minister, can you update the Assembly on the progress of the Marara Master Plan and its aim to re-establish the precinct as the Territory's premier sporting complex and, in turn, deliver on this government's election commitment to restore our Territory lifestyle to its former glory?
Minister for People, Sport and Culture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Member for Fanny Bay, for this question. So the Marara Sports Precinct Master Plan indeed represents a significant commitment by the Northern Territory Government to enhance sporting infrastructure, which will ultimately deliver extensive health, social and economic benefits for Territorians. By providing a strategic roadmap, the Master Plan will ensure that the precinct remains a premier sporting hub, accommodating future growth while maintaining accessibility for the local community. The development of the Master Plan will prioritize upgrading existing infrastructure, including modernizing aging facilities, improving drainage, enhancing public amenities, and optimizing pedestrian and vehicle access. This will create a safer and more inclusive environment for athletes, spectators, and families. Madam Speaker, the member for Fanny Bay knows well that the success of projects such as these relies on local stakeholder and community engagement, which will play a pivotal role in shaping the master plan. A structured consultation process has been established to ensure broad participation. The first round of stakeholder and community consultation took place between December 2024 and January 2025, allowing for initial input for key priorities. During this period, the department engaged with 15 peak sporting bodies, 6 key stakeholders, 13 local sporting clubs, 2 other local stakeholders, and over 100 community members as part of the consultation. Later this month, I am expecting to receive the first draft of the master plan, which will be released publicly for a second round of consultation, enabling further review and refinement. The final master plan will be launched later this year. Madam Speaker, the involvement of sports organizations, local clubs, and community members will ensure that all voices are heard, including those of smaller and emerging sports. I would encourage the community to provide feedback to this master plan, which we believe will establish a long-term vision for the Marara Sports Precinct that fosters community engagement, promotes healthy lifestyle, and strengthens economic validity of the Northern Territory. So, Member for Fanny Bay, I know that I think how passionate you are about the sports, and I'm sure over the next few weeks we'll be able to announce more excitement things happening in the sports as well. Thank you for that question.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that any further questions be placed on the written notice paper.
Yes, Attorney General.
Standing Order 115, I'd just like to clarify an answer to a question that was asked by the member for Arafura.
Certainly.
I just wanted to clarify that the crime statistics have always been 3 months in arrears, always, under Labor as well. So that hasn't changed under the CLP government. So on the 21st of March, which is this week, you will see the January figures updated on the website. And then on the 18th of April, you will see the February figures updated on the website. So no change there. Just wanted to clarify that for the record.